The Russians are using something that was invented in Colorado Springs, Colorado in 1900 by Nikola Tesla. Nikola
Tesla died in January 1943, alone in a New York hotel room. Within hours, the FBI arrived and seized everything he owned. Every document, every diagram, every notebook. Officially, they were just protecting national security during wartime. But here's what they found in those papers. Tesla had figured out something about the Earth itself. Something that, if true, changes everything we think we know about physics, about time, about the world we're living in right now. And decades later, the Russians built it.
They found out that the electronic signal from Colorado Springs to South Africa would arrive there at 27 times the speed of light.
27 times the speed of light. According to Einstein, nothing can travel faster than light. That's not just a suggestion. It's the foundation of modern physics. It's what we build our entire understanding of the universe on. But Tesla's experiments showed something else. Something that, if true, means our models of reality are incomplete. The signal didn't just travel. It arrived before it should have been possible. And nobody has ever been able to explain how. At least, not officially. The Russians didn't ignore this. They didn't dismiss it as impossible. They asked a different question. What if Tesla was right?
For example, I did the experiments that proved that the Soviets were doing this in about 1 week. Zlobek and I did it. We built the equipment, we designed the experiment. It took us 1 week to get very clear-cut results. We gave that to the CIA, the intelligence community, the Canadian government, the British government, everything. It took them 3 years to duplicate what we did in the work.
So what exactly did the Russians figure out? Because if the CIA, the Canadian government, and the British government all get involved in the same thing at the same time, you know there's something there. And if you think this is just about Russia and America and Cold War games, wait until you hear what the signal actually does.
By 1976, they had a fully operational Tesla tower. They did not have above ground. They actually have them in big holes in the ground. But this ring knob did not send any signal through the air. I didn't make that clear. All the signal was sent through the Earth.
They put them in holes in the ground, deep enough that satellites couldn't spot them. Tesla understood something about this planet that nobody else did. The Russians found his nose, and they built it. Multiple towers, multiple locations, all connected through the Earth. And here's the part that feels deliberate. They turned them on July 4th, 1976, the day America was celebrating 200 years of independence. And on that exact day, the Russians unleashed something the CIA wouldn't fully understand for years. Something that reached across the planet, something that didn't respect borders. Coincidence? Maybe. But in this world, timing is never accidental.
Never since this signal was unleashed on the Earth, which is July 4th, 1976, they unleashed this on the Earth. That's when I first became aware, and I was working in Canada for the Canadian government on a power transmission problem, and the signal suddenly came over the air, and we didn't know what the hell was going on. Total chaos and panic for about 3 months.
Here's the thing. This wasn't secret. In October 1976, the New York Times ran a story about it. A very powerful, mysterious radio signal coming from the Soviet Union, disrupting communications around the world for months. Maritime, aeronautical, telecommunications, channels rendered virtually useless. The FCC filed 4 complaints to Moscow. No answer. Amateur radio operators in Sweden, Norway, Germany, the US, Australia, all reporting the same interference. Direction-finding equipment tracked it to the eastern side of the Baltic Sea. And here's what the Times didn't know yet. It was pulsed at 10 times per second. And when doctors started looking at what that frequency does to the human brain, they didn't like what they found. The Russians weren't just disrupting radio. They were broadcasting something that could alter alpha rhythms, something that could affect the central nervous system. And the governments who knew? They went quiet. Which raises the only question that matters. What were they so afraid to tell us?
And through a very peculiar mechanism, it doesn't just shoot through. A certain part of the signal is reflected back, and that's part of the transmitting signal. Transmitting signal comes out here, part of it goes through the air and forms a little band there, and a little band there. And the net signal that reaches us goes around the Earth in a great circle route like this. So anything inside the circle does not get the ELF that they're sending, but everybody outside the circle gets it. And they designed this thing so it comes right down to Ottawa, comes west of Montreal, down out to Barrie, right to New York City, a little bit down toward Philadelphia, and then swings across the Atlantic Ocean, goes through again, that comes all the way back to China and so on, all the way back to the point of origin. So that's how the Russian signal is sent, and that's the way ours is sent. We duplicated the signal.
The signal doesn't just go everywhere equally. It creates a pattern, a kind of donut around the Earth. If you're inside that circle, you barely notice anything. But if you're outside, you're getting the full broadcast. And they designed it specifically to hit certain places, or so it seems. Because if you follow that path, Ottawa, Montreal, down the Hudson Valley, over New York City, towards Philadelphia, then across the Atlantic, back to China. It passes directly over the northeastern United States, the seat of government, financial centers, military command. And it does it without crossing borders, without entering airspace, without anything anyone could call an act of war. The signal goes through the Earth itself and comes up exactly where they want it. The question is not whether they can do this. They've been doing it since 1976. The question is, what were they sending?
For example, I did the experiments to prove that the Soviets were doing this in about 1 week. Bob Beck and I did it. We built the equipment, we designed the experiment. It took us 1 week to get very clear-cut results. We gave that to the CIA, the intelligence community, the Canadian government, the British government, everything. You know, it took them 3 years to duplicate what we did in the Word. Finally, after 3 years, we proved that you could entrain the brain of an individual and get this kind of effect. And now, of course, our set are coming out with it.
That's the question Puharich and Beck set out to answer. Not whether the signal existed or where it came from. They already proved that in 1 week. The question was, what does it actually do? So they built the experiment and got results so clear there was no room for interpretation. They proved you could train an individual's brainwaves. You could influence them, shape them from thousands of miles away. Now, this isn't some tinfoil hat theory. It's physics, frequency. The same way a specific sound can shatter glass, specific frequencies can affect human biology. And as you're about to see, Puharich spent years documenting exactly how these frequencies interact with the body, how they can disrupt, how they can heal, and in some cases, how they can make you sick.
The one side develops a weapon, this is a weapon. The other side's got to have the same weapon, even though they might be, like nuclear weapons, mutually destructive. It's part of, a sick part of the human mind, particularly the military mind.
Puharich called it a weapon. Not in the way we normally think of weapons. No explosions, no destruction you can see. But according to everything he discovered, if you can broadcast the right frequency, you're not just interfering with radio anymore. You're interfering with biology.
I'll give you a small example. There's a guy in Spain who name is Delgado, an old friend of mine, a brilliant researcher from Spain. But he was in Yale, that's where I first met him for about 20 years. You may remember him as the guy who implanted radio receivers in the heads of bulls, and then he had a little radio transmitter in his hand, and he would get the bull anger to charge at him. We just stand there, with a laboratory smock coat on, no sword, no nothing, no cape. You just press the button, and he would influence the bull to go from anger to passivity, and the bull would just stop in his tracks and say, "What's going on? I like that guy. What am I charging him for?" And he actually demonstrated this in a very famous bull ring in Spain. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff that Delgado has been doing.
Delgado wasn't a fringe figure. He was a professor at Yale Medical School, director of neuropsychology. His research was funded by the U.S. Office of Naval Research. The bull experiment made the front page of the New York Times in 1965. But here's what the newspapers didn't focus on. Delgado had already done this in humans. Patients with epilepsy, he implanted electrodes in their brains and found he could produce specific reactions. anxiety, friendliness, even verbal output, just by sending a signal. He called the device a stimoceiver. It could receive and transmit radio waves directly to the brain. The implications were obvious to him. In 1969, he wrote, "We must electronically control the brain. Someday, armies and generals will be controlled by electric stimulation of the brain." Now think about this in the context of what Puharich was finding. Delgado needed implants to get results, but Puharich was talking about frequencies affecting people without any implants at all, just by being broadcast through the air, through the ground. And that's when he found experiments that went far beyond bulls and radio transmitters.
He stimulates them with the various frequency. He can stimulate, and he's found frequency that can make the fly eye change from green to purple. In other words, he can manipulate the entire genetic structure of the fly by using the right frequency.
Headaches, exhaustion, a humming in her ear. That's what diplomat Catherine Werner started feeling when she got sick while working in China.
If even weak signals can influence cellular structures in controlled environments, what happens when signals aren't controlled? When they're constant, planetary, and impossible to escape? I'm not saying this caused anything, but I am saying once biology becomes part of the battlefield, the timeline changes. And according to Puharich, that timeline was already here.
But that's the kind of research that's going on now. You can actually create genetic mutation in creatures like flies, and been done in mice and been done in rats, by just feeding them with such a weak being that they're only ultra sophisticated. That's the kind of nutty world we have developed, okay? And all this stuff is brand new knowledge. All they're 7 years old at the most.
Puharich is describing something that sounds like it was pulled from a science fiction novel. Frequencies that can influence the brain, that can alter genetic structures, that can be sent through the ground from one side of the planet to the other. And yet, all of this is real, documented, funded, sometimes by our own governments. Maybe that's why there are so many technologies the public has never heard of. Or if they have, they dismiss them as conspiracy theories because they're too hard to believe, too far from what we were told is possible. But men like Tesla existed. They built things that today seem impossible, and someone paid attention to what they left behind. The Russians paid attention. The Americans did too. The British, the Canadians, all following the same documents, the same experiments. Puharich believed that one day, war would become so automated that heroism would be irrelevant. No medals, no bands, just machines fighting machines. And when that day comes, he said, wars will end.
The day will come when all wars will be fought by automated instruments. There's somebody pressed a button and the rocket goes off, another rocket comes up and they fight it out and they both fall to the ground. He said, when the day arrives and man has perfected this technology where there's no hero stuff for individuals, there's no medals, there's no fans, there's no cheering, he said, and everything is like a machine robot type of war, then wars will end, and I believe he's right. And we're getting close to that area.
Tesla once said that if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. For most people, that's just a quote, but for the governments that studied his work, it may have been a blueprint. In the full conversation, Puharich said more, drew conclusions we can't fit here. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is to simply ask, why do these things exist? Why are we so quick to laugh at them? To call them conspiracies and move on? Again, this isn't about tinfoil hats. It's about wondering what's really happening in the spaces we can't see, in the frequencies we can't measure, in the stories we're told are ridiculous before we even hear them. Everyone's free to do their own research. But if this video did one thing, I hope it made you wonder.